My cherry berry cobbler recipe is easy and delicious. With the sweetness of dark cherries and the flavors of mixed berries, this dessert is going to be amazing. Let's go over the ingredients. You will need 12 ounces of dark sweet cherries and 12 ounces of mixed berries for a total of 24 ounces of fruit or 680 grams. I am using frozen, but you can use fresh, that's totally fine. And the ingredients list of my mixed berries says that it's strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. So my mix is more strawberries and blueberries than blackberries and raspberries. Your berry medley may be different. Honestly, I think this recipe will work regardless. In addition to the fruit, you're going to need half a cup of white sugar, 105 grams, half a cup of light brown sugar, 120 grams, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, an eighth of a teaspoon of salt, and a half cup of water to complete the filling. Later on, I'm going to add a cornstarch slurry with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and 2 tablespoons of water. I'm going to use 2 9-inch pie crusts. You can use store-bought, that's totally fine, but I'm going to use homemade. And right before I put the cobbler into the oven, I'm going to sprinkle on 1 tablespoon of white sugar and 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar. As you can see, my cherries are still frozen. I literally just threw them into the pot. You can do the same with the berries, but what I did is I picked out the strawberries and blueberries, and then I thawed the blackberries and raspberries in the microwave. Then I strained out the seeds, and I have this juice. I don't like blackberry and raspberry seeds in desserts, so that's why I did that. You could literally just open the bag of mixed berries and throw it in there, but like I said, I think it's better to strain out the seeds. So the first step in making this cherry berry cobbler is making the filling. Like I said, I have my frozen cherries in there. I'm going to throw in the berries and the strained blackberry and raspberry juice. I'm going to use my half cup of water to kind of clean this out. I didn't measure how much juice was in there, but I'm guessing maybe 1/4 of a cup. Now I'm going to add my sugar, and I'm making a mess. Whenever I cook, I make messes, but that's okay. And this recipe is really versatile. If you just want to do cherries with strawberries and blueberries, you can, or blackberries and raspberries, but no other berries, that's okay. Whatever you want to do. So I am going to mix all this together, keeping the cornstarch off to the side. We don't want to add that first, or at least right away. Now I'm going to turn on the heat and bring this to a boil. But before I do that, I'm going to put my pie crust back into the refrigerator because they are going to be much easier to work with if they are cold. Now that my cherries and berries are starting to come to a boil, I'm going to turn the heat down to medium. It was on high, but now it's on medium, gas mark 3 out of 6. I'm just going to continue boiling on medium heat for 10 minutes. These big strawberries, once they thaw all the way through, I'll probably break them up. My cherries and berries have been boiling on the stovetop on medium heat for 10 minutes. I actually turned down the heat to low at the end because it looked like it might boil over. I wasn't quite sure. I broke up some of the strawberries, like I said, but as you can see, the filling is definitely coming along. So now it's time for the slurry. Like I said, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. I'm going to use I'll use this one. I'm making a slurry off to the side because adding cornstarch directly to something that's hot usually does not work out. It'll clump. It'll produce lumps in the liquid. So I highly recommend mixing it off to the side and then adding it in. Turn down the heat just a little bit, pour it in, and now mix. It should start to thicken pretty fast. And as you can see, it's already thickening. I actually almost forgot something important. I like the way this tastes, but I want to make sure that it has plenty of cherry flavor, so I'm actually going to add some almond extract. Half a teaspoon of almond extract. I know you might be thinking, Parnell, there are no almonds in this. Why are you doing that? That's because almonds and cherries are related botanically, and almond extract is a secret ingredient in a lot of cherry desserts. It really helps bring out the cherry flavor. So I'm going to add some almond extract. I would not add this at the beginning. I would add this after you turn off the heat, after making the slurry. Otherwise, it might burn off. Now it's time to part bake the bottom crust. I'm going to put my filling off to the side. Here I already have my bottom crust in my 8x8 casserole dish. I buttered it and then literally just put the pie crust in and cut it to shape. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just going to take a fork, make some pricks in it, somewhere between 7 to 10 probably. And now I'm going to bake this empty at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes. That's just to give the bottom a head start so that it doesn't get soggy. My bottom crust is now out of the oven, so it's time to start assembling my cherry berry cobbler. My second crust I cut into a square, so I cut off the edges, and some of the edges I'm going to add to the filling as dumplings. In an old-fashioned southern style cobbler, dumplings are literally just small pieces of pie crust that are dumped or put into the filling. This step is optional. Not everyone likes dumplings in their cobbler, but I like them because they do help to thicken it a little bit, and it's nice to have that contrast in textures. The crispy pie crust on the top and bottom, and the soft pillowy pie crust in the middle. You don't want to add too much dough to the filling because then it can start to taste doughy or floury. But I would say maybe no more than a 1/4 cup of pie crust and you should be okay. So maybe 1 to 2 sides of the pie crust that you cut off. So I'm not going to add a ton. Move things around. Pull this forward. Now I'm literally just going to dump the filling into the bottom pie crust. Although you could add a solid top to your cobbler, I am going to do a lattice. So here I have my pie crust, and I'm literally just going to cut strips. If they're thicker, it's going to be easier to work with the dough. And if your dough is cold, it's going to be easier as well. These strips are, let's see, 1.5, 1 inch, something like that. So like I said, thicker strips are easier. There's really no set way to do this. Just peel off the strip and then lay it on. I am going to do it this way. I like to space them 1 strip thickness apart, just like that. And then I'll just lay them across the top the other way. You could try weaving them if you want, but I don't recommend it because the filling is so juicy. It's going to be very difficult. Do that. My cherry berry cobbler with pie crust is almost done. The only thing I have left to do is to take my 1 tablespoon of white sugar, my 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar, and just sprinkle it over the top. You don't have to do this. You could do some melted butter or an egg wash or something, but I like to do this because I think it adds a little bit of extra sweetness and a little crunch that is very nice. So, I would try to aim for the crust itself, but if you get some into the filling, which I think is unavoidable, that is okay. I am going to bake this cobbler at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, uncovered, for I'm guessing 45 minutes. Of course, I'll let you know. And one thing I highly recommend doing is placing this on a baking sheet or a pizza pan like I'm going to do. It's going to make it a lot easier to pull in and out of the oven. And also, if it boils over, it will boil over onto your pan and not onto the bottom of your oven, which is going to be a lot harder to clean. I just pulled my cherry berry cobbler out of the oven. It was in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Originally, I was going to do 45 minutes, but life happened and I think it was in for maybe 50 or 55. But that's okay. It looks and smells amazing. Even though my cobbler was in the oven for a little bit longer than I had originally planned, I don't think the extra time hurt it. The crust was perfectly golden brown and the filling was nice and syrupy, so I couldn't wait to dig in and give it a try. And when I took the first bite, I knew that my cherry berry cobbler recipe was a big success because it tasted absolutely delicious. Considering that the filling was half cherries by weight, it shouldn't be any surprise that I thought the flavor was dominated by cherry. The berries were definitely there, but like I said, cherry was the dominant flavor, the flavor of the berries playing a supporting role in the background. The exact flavor is going to differ depending on the blend of frozen berries or fresh berries that you use. I used a blend that had more strawberries than anything, but if your mix has more blueberries or something like that, then yours will be a little bit different, but honestly, I don't think you'll have to change the recipe at all. The flavor was absolutely perfect, and even though the consistency, as you can see here, was a little bit runnier than what I normally like, I think it was fine. Juicing some of the berries meant that there was less fiber in the filling, so honestly I think it's logical for it to be a little bit more loose. You could add more cornstarch if you want, but honestly I thought it was fine the way that it was. And now that I'm holding the first slice up to the camera, you can get a really good look at the texture of the filling. Like I said, it was loose, it didn't hold together like most of my cobbler fillings do, but I wouldn't call it watery or soupy. It was definitely thicker than normal juice. It was like a syrup that was absolutely perfect. It was amazing. Although this cobbler was great on its own, that syrup was a perfect consistency for some ice cream. So if you serve this cobbler with some vanilla ice cream on the side, that can help sop up some of the leftover syrup. I also really like the pie crust in this recipe as well. As you saw, I added some dumplings to the filling, and I think they probably did help thicken it a little bit more, but I really liked the combination between the soft, pillowy crust that was inside of the cobbler and the crispy, crunchy crust in the lattice and on the sides and bottom. Even though this was my first time making it, I was really pleased with how it turned out. This cherry berry cobbler had all the flavors of summer, so if you're looking for the perfect summer fruit dessert, this is one you need to try. Even though I wouldn't change anything about the recipe, one thing I did want to point out is that this is on the sweet side. If you've ever cooked with dark sweet cherries and added sugar to them, you know that that pie or whatever you're making can turn out kind of sweet. I personally think that dark sweet cherries have more flavor than tart cherries, so that's why I use them in this recipe. But honestly, if you're concerned about it being too sweet, you might want to give the sour cherries a try, or do half dark sweet and half tart cherries. You could reduce the sugar a little bit by a couple tablespoons, but honestly, I think any dessert that has dark sweet cherries is going to be on the sweet side, so that's just something you might have to live with. And honestly, not juicing the blackberries and raspberries to take out the seeds, that would probably help tone down the sweetness a little bit, because I feel like there's some bitterness in blackberry seeds. So you could give that a try if you want. But like I said, I think these are small tweaks to the recipe. If you really want to give them a try, you can, but I think overall it was great as it was. Overall, I really liked how my cherry berry cobbler recipe turned out. It did a great job of blending together all of the flavors of the season into one. So if you're looking for a way to celebrate summer, this is the dessert for you. If you make it, I know you'll like it. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.